So with us today is Carol Voorhees from NJM, Christine Pendergrast from Munich Re, and Megan Watt from Chubb. And I will give them all a second to introduce themselves and tell us about their background, and then we'll roll into our Q&A.
I think I'm going first. So hi, I'm Carol Voorhees. I am Chief Information Officer at NJM Insurance Group. I've worked for NJM for 25 years, mostly in technical project management roles. I am a CPCU. I earned my designation in 2010, and it seems like yesterday, but it's 10 years ago. It's amazing how fast it goes. So congratulations to all the new designees. I know how hard it is and how much work it is. And I think I loved Kisan's story. I think we all have a similar CPCU foundational story. I know I have my own, so maybe one day I'll share it, but I look forward to the session, and thanks for having me.
Also, a warm hello from my side. My name is Christine Pendergrast. Thanks, Patrick, and also Tina, for giving me the opportunity to participate in the panel discussion today. It's a really great pleasure, and congratulations to all the new designees, also from my side. I'm the head of claims for the youth P&C companies at Munich Re, and the chief claims officer for Munich Re America. In this role, I'm responsible for reinsurance and insurance claims across all of our units in the and also for claims runoff solutions and operations analytics and reporting. In the meantime, I've been in the industry for over 19 years, so it's adding up when you're having fun and time's flying, as we all know. I'm a member of the bar and hold a law degree from the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich, and that also gives away where my accent comes from. I got my exam in Germany, so I'm very much looking forward to the discussion today, and hello again to everybody.
Oh, Megan, we're not hearing you.
It says connecting at the moment. We're keeping our fingers crossed.
All right, so Megan, we're gonna give you a second just to get the audio sorted out. I'll start one of the questions off with Carol. So Carol, you mentioned how you have more of a tech background as part of the group here. So how has working remotely affected your teams?
So it's a great question, right? So like everybody in the world, right, we transitioned to a 100% remote workforce almost overnight. We were lucky we had a pretty strong telecommuting practice at NJM. So those employees, particularly in claims, we have a large claims telecommuting team. So we were able to deploy them to the remote workforce immediately while we transitioned the rest of the staff remote, with equipment. And we had to do some training in a lot of the roles, right? A lot of the roles at NJM were not off-site and telecommuters. So it was I can't say enough, for the NJMers who are on site. I see a couple of them. I can't say enough about how well our staff, and I think all, as the industry as a whole, I think we all are probably proud of our teams at the way they transitioned. Some of the concerns with telecommuting is cybersecurity concerns, right? So we've seen a heightened activity in cyber attacks, particularly around business email compromise. So for any CIOs out there, October is Cybersecurity Month. So everybody think before you click, because the bad guys are out there, and they're definitely looking to take advantage of COVID-19 and the pandemic. The other thing, as we think about, long-term staying remote as an organization, you start to think about, how do you bring in talent? How do you train people? How do you indoctrinate new employees in a remote setting into the culture? NJM has a very strong customer-oriented culture. A lot of that is established through our employee interactions and the way we think about the world and the way we approach our jobs and, you know, the way we interact with each other on site. You know, we obviously are using technology like this to try to recreate those dynamics. It's not quite the same, but it certainly will challenge us to innovate and figure out how to keep employee engagement going on. So we're doing things like gamification on our website where, you know, employees are taking, you know, doing games and running contests and, you know, giving out prizes, you know, to try to keep that employee engagement as we go forward. And then from a claims perspective, and Christine and Megan are going to be able to talk a lot about this because they run claim operations, but, you know, we had a storm come up, you know, Isaias. It took us a long time to figure out to get that pronunciation right. You know, that was a challenge for us. We had a lot of employees who lost power and weren't able to service customers. So, you know, that becomes an ongoing challenge. You know, luckily we were at the point of the pandemic where we could bring some people on site. But those are certainly challenges for us as we continue to think about how to support our policyholders long term.
All right, thanks, Carol.
You're welcome.
Megan, I think we sorted out the audio problem.
I think so. Can you hear me now?
All good.
Okay. Yeah. Only took several tries. Just briefly, I'm the head of complex claims at Chubb, and I've been there 2 years. I've been in the industry about over 20 years now, and before that I practiced law. So I learned most of the beginning of my understanding of the insurance industry started when I was a practicing attorney. And at that point in time, you know, when you work in a law firm and you support insurance companies, you realize that's actually where most of the big decisions are made, which is what prompted my transition from practicing law into the insurance industry. But let me just jump to the question. I know we were focusing on how the current remote situation has affected our claim organizations, and, you know, echoing the concerns that, you know, and issues that Carol's identified, you know, we're seeing the same things. You know, it's all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're not back in the office, and you have these large operations that you have to now maintain and keep connected. And it's different. We've gotten feedback that, you know, some of it's better, actually. Some people find themselves more efficient. They're actually able to connect with colleagues they never met before because WebEx provides a level of flexibility and engagement that we previously weren't exploiting when we figured the most important meetings were meetings you had to go to in person. So, you know, a lot of positive feedback with the ability to exploit technology. Challenges, though, do include just the actual trade-off about engagement, right? You can access and reach more people when you're virtual, but there is qualitatively a difference between the conversation that you'll have face-to-face or a meeting with a group of people face-to-face in distinction from something that's a purely virtual environment. So, you know, as we deal with COVID and we see different responses and people's willingness to go back to work or not go back to work, I think what we're aiming for is balancing and being respectful and responsive to both customers and their needs, but also our employees.
Thanks, Megan. And Christine?
Thanks, both of you. I fully agree with what you've said, and we've made similar experiences, and I think it was a really great and amazing journey that we all have been on, and we were lucky in our industry that we have the opportunity and possibility to work from home. As an addition, I'd like to comment a little bit on the return to work part. As you can see, this is the office behind me. So I've been volunteering, and I'm part of the first voluntary wave at Munich Re here in Princeton. And I have to say, it has been a really great experience. Obviously, everybody has tried to put in place enhanced safety and cleaning protocols. And it's also important to get all of us comfortable with thinking of going back to work in this environment. There's no vaccine out there yet. So there's my mask. And at the moment I leave my desk, I'll put the mask on. But I have to say, overall, it has been really good. I'm going to work roughly twice a week. And honestly, initially, it felt a little bit awkward. But now when I walk into the office, I feel comfortable, I feel safe, and it is a good feeling. And my back also says thank you, because the office chair is so much more comfy than my office chair at home. So that's also an advantage. But obviously, when you look at the pros and cons, so what's the upside for yourself? You have to get dressed in the morning. You have to think of what am I wearing the next day. So that's quite burdensome if you haven't done it for half a year. And then you also have to drive to work. So it's not that you go downstairs, you have your coffee with your family, you have your jet, and then you walk upstairs and log on to the company system. It's just different. But this is a really important phase for us in the industry. Companies can learn so much from what we are doing at the moment and what we are experiencing in these voluntary phases. And the feedback that every employee can provide to the company is really very, very helpful. Because obviously the question for all of us is, what does the new normal look like in these instances, and how can we contribute to that? Will we be working remotely? Will it be a hybrid model? Who will be working on campus? It's so many questions, and I'm really excited to be part of that and to be able to give feedback and also feel safe during the time where I'm at work. So I think that the biggest takeaway for me is that it's really important that we don't try to get back too quickly, because it's a great opportunity for all of us to shape the future in a different way. We can work remotely, but as you've also said, you can't replace the direct interaction with the colleague through just video chats. You don't bump into each other in a video chat. You have to actively click on something in order to see somebody. You don't have the, I meet you in the floor, in the floor area, and I'll chat about a topic. So that's different. So I'm looking forward to learning what the new normal will look like. But for me, if I had to give my vote, I would vote for a hybrid model.
Okay. Carol, Megan, what do you think about the new normal? What do you think it looks like when this is over?
Yeah, I mean, we see it similar to what Christine already said, as a hybrid, right? So I think, and Megan echoed it as well, right? There's certain roles and certain processes that become more efficient. And then other roles that really do, or other projects that really do benefit from the on-site experience. So we see it probably morphing into a hybrid, and I think we will learn a lot. And I agree that we should encourage our employees to share those experiences with us so that we can make the most of that hybrid model going forward.
I think one of the challenges a lot of companies will face is, what is physically the hybrid look like? Because many large companies have significant, real estate footprints all over the world. And with the current situation, I think there's going to be a lot of thinking about, well, what should the real estate footprint look like? What should we do with our real estate when people do come back? How do we want them to interact with one another? Were the traditional, cubes, offices, and office layouts that we're more familiar with really, ideally suited? Do we need them? And it is going to be, I think, a little bit of trial and error. I also think that depending upon what your job is, different people do different things. They need and use space differently. So we're going to be having a lot of discussions about, how can we support not only what new real estate footprint will look like, but also the diversification of it. And what is access? Do people still need to be physically located in the state where the home office is? I mean, the whole virtual environment has begged a lot of questions about really, where do you need to be? I do think there are jobs and career paths that benefit by having, an in-office environment. And I think you learn differently, and you learn, depending upon what you want to do, more and more richly. And I think we're not going to be giving that up, because I think, people will at some point, demand that. There will be employees that say, no, I only really want to be in the office. But it's going to be a challenge for everybody.
Right. Okay, so Megan, I'm going to stick with you. Interacting with customers, serving our policyholders and our insureds and our agents, how has that changed?
Right. Well, it's changed. So there's a lot more concern about, obviously, personal safety, health, making sure that when we interact with people in person, that all the appropriate precautions are taken, that you're very respectful of, you know, other people's space. You know, we have new protocols rolled out to deal with, you know, our independent adjusters that actually have to go to, you know, adjust claims in person. And you have to be very sensitive and cognizant of all the regulations, you know, the executive orders that govern access, that permit or don't permit travel. So, you know, there's been a lot of attention to detail associated with how we deliver the customer service. We also, as much as possible, are really trying to exploit virtual technologies, because not all customers want to have a face-to-face experience anymore for the reasons that, you know, many people are aware of. You know, the reaction to the COVID virus, people have different views about, you know, what it does to you, and your relative willingness to be in proximity of other people. On the commercial side of things, you know, the engagement with brokers, agents, they've adapted very well to the virtual environment, because that's just part of the business transactional environment that we're in. They are facing, though, many of the similar challenges that all of the people, you know, all of businesses in America and the rest of the world are.
Okay, thank you. Christine?
Perhaps I can add something regarding the innovation initiatives. And Megan, I think you've briefly touched on it already, because COVID has helped us a little bit to get those initiatives more broadly accepted. Whilst we in the past had the face-to-face discussions and inspections at the policies' homes, and that was the normal way of how we interacted. Now there was, out of a sudden, also a need and an urge from the insured side not to have the adjuster in the house. So remote inspections, especially in the home insurance sector, we have seen a lot more acceptance, and we've made much more progress in implementing the new technology. So overcoming the simple hurdles, like you have to download the app. What is my password for downloading the app? So people made the effort now, whereas in the past they were shy quickly. And technology is a broad variety, and Rob has mentioned that this morning in his presentation already as well. Video inspections via a phone app, aerial images, the use of drones. There's so much out there, and I think COVID really has helped us to become better in that area at a quicker pace. So that's very positive from my side. And that's not only valid for the insureds, the policyholders, but also our own adjusters, because obviously we're going through a change in that regard, in the transition, and they also had to get used to it. So I think that if you want to find something positive about COVID, this is one of the aspects I think that we could count on. On the reinsurance side, Megan, similar to what you've just mentioned, also with the interaction with the brokers, we started carrying out claims reviews remotely. And in the beginning, it was a big problem, because the colleagues were saying, well, we have IT issues, we can't get into the system, so it's taking a couple of hours to really make that work. But then when we were honest with ourselves, being on site, it didn't go that smoothly every time either. So I think there is a balance there, and in the meantime, we've had really great experience in doing this, and the clients, the insurers in that context, they also appreciate it. And I also find it a lot easier to connect briefly on a topic, because in the past we were more used to putting a day program together and going to the client, or the client visiting us. And now you can have the more spontaneous conference call, an hour call on a specific topic, and everybody is accepting that the video chat is the normal way of communicating for the time being. So again, another positive development. But having said that, I'm looking forward to seeing the clients again.
Right. So Christine, with the technology, with complex claims, I mean, we still have to do our primary job. So has that made life easier, harder, just a different type of normal?
I think it's different, and we are on a big journey in that regard. So I've briefly touched on the virtual inspections already. And I think when it comes really to the complex claims, Patrick, technology will be there to support us, but the experience and the knowledge that our claims managers have is really of great importance here. Because in the beginning, if you have a complex claim, you always have to have the human knowledge and the colleagues looking at these claims and trying to determine what are the coverage issues, what are the facts, what problems and issues do we face in that regard. I think that the big challenge in that context is to encourage our claims managers to feed those claims back into the system and into the automation process once we have clarified those issues. Because we are so used to keeping our files and we love our claims files, and letting go of those, I think that's the encouragement that people need, and also the backing from the management, because there will be irregularities out there. And I don't want to talk about mistakes, because we are all on a learning curve, and there will be the one or other claim that we put back into the system and we said, oops, we shouldn't have done that for this and that reason. And it's important that we have an open dialogue about that so that we can learn from these irregularities and then adjust our systems.
Okay, thank you. And the funny thing is, you know, the first claim I ever handled was on paper too. So it's funny how fast and how far we've come since then. So Megan, as far as, you know, looking over the entire complex portfolio of claims, how has the technology either helped or enabled you in your role?
So technology, it helps to a certain extent, but as Christine pointed out, when you're dealing with legacy claims on legacy paper, there's a point at which technology, the cost benefit of innovating basically historic process starts to diminish, right? So a lot of the claim handling on old long tail claims, right, finding the policy, setting the files up, right, this is very manual because only typically a few people in even large companies know how to actually do all that work. And I don't see that there's going to be a significant technology solution that's going to ever be able to automate all that legacy work. That said, the goal would be to over time have less and less of it. So that's important. But one way technology can be exploited and is very helpful with legacy claims is they typically are claims that involve what are mass tort liabilities. And what you're able to do with technology is use modeling and, you know, data analysis, create databases to really, once you've organized the problem, you can create databases of the mass tort issue or liability, which allows an insurer to really understand the scope or scenario model that kind of an exposure, which is extremely helpful and beneficial because, you know, it's information and it gives you an ability to figure out what an appropriate resolution strategy is.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned data. Carol, you know, on the tech side of things, you know, how are you leveraging data and analytics at NJM?
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Christine and Megan talk about how technology is helping, right? That's the holy grail for CIOs. We're trying to figure out, you know, how can we align technology services to really meet business needs. And when it comes to data analytics, it's a challenge, right? And I think, you know, we all experience the same thing. The historical nature of claims, right? So looking backwards and seeing how things are progressing and how we're doing, you know, that's the easy part. We've made a lot of progress in that regard. We view our data analytics program as a multi-year journey, right? You know, we collect a lot of data. We have our own data. We get third-party data. We get, you know, we combine that now with customer data and behavior data, you know, from our digital channels. You know, bringing that all together and curating it into business insights that can drive better interactions with our policyholders is basically, you know, what we're trying to do. And I always tell my team it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So, you know, when we think about the claims, again, bringing it back to the claims area, because obviously there's a lot of opportunities for data analytics around product and pricing. And again, you know, driving customer experience through data. But from a claims perspective, you know, we've been focused on, you know, the more I would call low-hanging fruit, although I hate that term, but, you know, straight through processing, right, low touch, and really bringing the higher complex claims to the adjusters so that they can spend more time on it, right? That's what the technology folks are trying to do, right? Empower that end user with as much data as possible, and predictive data that would give them early indications of how a claim might mature over time, or maybe patterns in the claims experience that might, you know, be able to predict the outcome or to direct care. But again, it requires, moving from, descriptive, sort of what and why into that predictive, the trending, and then, talking earlier, listening to Rob talk about the value over time of the Internet of Things and how we can maybe bring more of those data insights into it. It makes the challenge bigger and bigger and bigger. And for us, we keep coming back to the basics of, how do we bring data to our employees and drive better claim decision making and outcomes. And that is, again, it's definitely a multi-year journey, but that's the goal.
So one follow-up for you, and I want to bring up a dirty word, which is legacy systems.
Yeah.
And, Rob mentioned—
It's not a dirty word.
No.
It's fine.
It's reality.
APIs and
Yeah.
microservices. Like, how do we go from having 12 systems that have been around from 50 years to the newest and best technology that will really enable, the future growth?
Yeah. So, we've been coming off of our mainframe system for a long time, 10 or 15 years. Most of our applications now are in open systems development. But I want to just say something that no CIOs probably talk about. There was a lot of good about the mainframe data. The new open system platforms sometimes store data in a way that's best for them, and getting the data out of those systems and then bringing, the real power of data analytics is bringing the data together from disparate systems. So even with the newest technology, you still have to do the hard work of bringing that data forward and defining that data in a way that puts it in business context, because again, that's the power of analytics. So there's no silver bullet in my mind when it comes to this stuff. It's hard work.
Right.
Right, because you have to also have excellent coding, and your habits around labeling have to be, constantly reinforced throughout the organization, because if you don't label things correctly, it's very hard to have excellent analytics. You don't know what you're measuring. So, these are sort of eternal challenges that the industry faces, because it's the classic, if the data going in is mislabeled, the output on the analytics is going to be, it's not going to be effective. And we rely on models in our frequency lines to allow us to, identify severity and then prioritize where the claims will be assigned and segmented. So yes, that's an important part of how we use the data. But there is no silver bullet, and it's a larger organizational challenge to address what you're talking about, Patrick, which is how do you retire 12 legacy systems? That's a very, very difficult question to answer, because typically you fund your IT expense or your capital spend by an identified savings, right? That's the way a lot of the allocation analysis is. So it's hard to correlate this sort of larger strategic and seemingly logical value of simplifying all those systems with what it actually costs to do that. And then once you change it, is the migration going to have the data in as accurate a format as it was in the mainframe, back to Carol's point. So it's hard. There's risk in it.
Absolutely. And Christine, so you have direct responsibility over an analytics team. So what's your take?
Yeah, so I've got the honor to work with Tina Koch and her team. So that's really amazing. So basically, we are also from a reinsurance perspective working on similar topics, which Carol and Megan have already mentioned. The analysis of claims characteristics to find out which individual claims might develop adversely. And sometimes on the reinsurance side, it's perhaps a little bit more challenging, because the level of information that we have available is a little smaller in the descriptions than primary insurers have at hand in doing the analysis. But we're making progress in that context. And two other ones that I wanted to mention is the claims portfolio analysis, so kind of doing the analysis of the broader portfolio and really understanding what are the drivers in the portfolio of a client, where do we have to focus on, where should we focus on with the client. Is the coverage that we are providing the correct one in that regard, and really having the dialogues with the clients. And the last one that you've already also been touching on is the extraction of unstructured data. And whilst as a reinsurer, it's amazing to have all these data at hand, obviously you have to bring them into a readable and usable format first in order then to think of text mining and all these nice things. the final comment that I wanted to make here is that from my point of view, it's really of utmost importance that the data engineers and the data scientists work hand in hand with the business unit. So they really have to understand the business, the models, the strategy, and what is important before they start programming and coming up with all these great and supporting tools. Because and then we also have to have the feedback loops. So there has to be really a very, very close interaction in that regard, because only if that works well, advance with data and technology.
Right. The data by itself is just data. It's not even really even information unless you know how to really interpret it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge, right? You know, from the tech side, we have a tendency to build a lot of things thinking that we know what the business wants to you know, we make assumptions, and if you don't have that connection as to, you know, what is the business really looking for, what are the insights they really want to glean from the data, and how do they want to use the data so that you can organize it in a way that's usable, what you end up doing is iterating through a lot of you know, bad solutions that look great and might, you know, flashy dashboards that look incredible to us technology folks, but then you do the audit on them and you find out nobody looks at them. So you know, it can be very deflating. So the power again is really you know, connecting that business vision and getting the data in the hands of the business, so you're empowering people, right? Technology is nothing unless it empowers people. So that's the hard part. And it does create, you know, it does require, as Christine said, those partnerships directly with the business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the partnership piece of it is absolutely critical, because, you know, if I've experienced what you're talking about. And one thing we do with our IT team is we've created an informal buddy system. So, you know, when an IT person expresses an interest in some claim group or department, we try to pair them up with somebody so that they can, if they have any kind of question, you know, an informal question that they don't understand an acronym or word, or they go to a meeting and nothing makes sense to them, you know, they can just basically hang the phone up, get off the meeting, and then call this person to help them kind of translate what just happened in the meeting. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people about it. And the IT folks have said things like, well, now that I know the workaround or why the person does that, I can change how I, you know, either sequence work or change and prioritize what I'm doing or my team is doing. So it is very, very important.
Agreed. I like that. I'm going to steal that, Megan.
Yeah, there's a subset of the analytics community that they call themselves translators now, because being able to talk both sides of it is absolutely critical. To have the domain experience, the business know-how, but also be able to talk tech and data to both sides of it at the same time and interpret both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very important point, right? So in our organization, we have business process units, and they are business people who work organizationally reporting into the business, but they're full-time dedicated to partnership with the IT and project management office, and they bring a lot of that business and tech, you know, bridging that gap for us. And as we think about, you know, the last 15 years in our transformation off the mainframe, the investment that the organization has made in these folks, and there's a lot of talented folks in these roles, that's really been an enabler for us in terms of getting quickly in relative terms off of the mainframe.
Right.
You know, now, you know, trying to parlay that role into, you know, more data analytics and you know, bringing that training and that analytical idea to that same, you know, role, so that we create that same good partnership between the tech and the business. It really does become an enabler. It is a little bit of a different skill set. Analytics is, you know, curiosity, you know, always wanting to know why is that, and being able to dig. It wouldn't be my ideal job, but there's a lot of people who are good out of it. This is also an area where, you know, talent is hard to find. So when you think about young, I know we said we had some rider folks. Data analytics is, you're never going to go hungry.
Yes. That's true.
So Carol, I'm gonna stick with you. You're the CPCU on the panel.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you see the CPCU fitting into a long and profitable career in the industry. And in addition to that, what advice would you give to the next generation of talent?
Sure. So I got my CPCU in 2010. For me personally, I came up through the technology world, so I didn't have a traditional college career. So I actually got my CPCU first, and then used that to actually get my graduate degree in 2015, because I was able to take some of those credit forwards personally. And then after my undergraduate degree, because I am a continuous learner, I actually also used my CPCU credentials with Boston University, and I'm in the process of getting my master's degree in insurance management. And I'm looking forward to graduating in January, hopefully. So for me personally, it's been a very valuable and important part of my professional career. And I think just in general, the Institute classes, right? So from technology people, we just talked about the need for the technology folks to understand the business, right? We can do a lot of cool things with technology, but if it doesn't empower the business, then it's really not worth it. So we use the classes to bring that, education forward, so that they understand, the basics of insurance and the basic terminology. And then we bootstrap that with internal training from an NJN perspective that really can be empowering for the technical folks. In terms of advice, I would say, things that you've already heard, continuous learning. I think that as we grow in age and experience, it changes, sort of the way we think about learning, and we think about, it just changes our perspective. So bringing yourself forward with, additional courses in a more traditional formal way can really empower you. So I would, recommend that you continue to learn. And also, technical expertise is important, but think about the soft skills, because I think, particularly when we think about management like this, where you're virtual, understanding how to read people, understanding how to build relationships becomes more and more critical when you can't be face to face with people. So it's really going to put a strain on the importance of those skills, in my mind, as we continue in this remote setting.
All right, awesome. So Megan, to you as well, continuing education, L&D, continuous learning, and then what advice for the next generation?
So I'll start with what advice I would give for the next generation, and for all students and their writer students who are on this panel. Question. I would say embrace the power of a question. If you don't understand something, ask. Engage a dialogue. Questions are very powerful because they're helpful to the person you ask the question to, right? They may actually not really have explained something very clearly, and by your asking the question, you're going to be engaging in a dialogue that may open up a different way of looking at a problem or an issue. And I know sometimes it's hard to feel like you're going to ask a question in a group where you don't know people, or you feel you're the youngest or the newest. But those are the questions that drive change. Those are the questions that will shape the future and will make people look at how to run this business differently. And that's something that I think, have the confidence to do that. Question, follow up, and don't ever think that the question is inappropriate or stupid. People frequently say, well, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but let me ask this question. It doesn't matter. You don't even need to preface it with that. I love it when people ask questions because it levels the playing field for everybody in the room. And when we are in meetings, and we do a lot of work in meetings, one of the things that gets very difficult is you go to the meeting, and if 18% or 20% of the people didn't understand what happened, that's an ineffective meeting. So for all the people who are early in career, this is your opportunity to shape and reshape this industry. And for all of people who are in mid-career or who have been in the industry for a long time, that's what we need to do so that we're ready and prepared for the future.
Thank you. And so here's a phenomenon that I've seen in meetings before, where you can have individuals across multiple not skill levels, but tiers in the industry. You can have entry-level people and mid-level managers and then senior-level managers, and the people further down the chain feel either intimidated or they're not allowed to speak up, whether to ask a question or to challenge the status quo. Does anyone want to tackle that one?
Well, I mean, I that's true. You're right. I mean, and that's what I think that dynamic is something that, you know, we have to just consciously, you know, we make room for the future, and we have to support the questions, and we have to support people who are asking for an explanation, because, you know, there's a lot of code in the insurance industry. There's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot of just speak that you can only understand if you've been in the environment or the context. But yeah, I would encourage you to speak up, you know, just jump in.
And I think leaders.
Go ahead, Carol.
No, I was just going to say, I think leaders have to pave the way in that, right? Make it comfortable for them. Engage the people who and be aware of who might be the people who need that extra explanation. Ask questions themselves that maybe they know the answer to, but to bring the whole team together, you know, give your the experts in the room an opportunity to share their knowledge in a deeper way, as opposed to just using the meeting to get, you know, to drive your agenda. Think about, you know, how to bring that forward, and that really falls to leadership.
Thank you. So Christine, I want you to break out your crystal ball and tell us, you know, what do you see for the future? You know, what are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And how can we better prepare to get in front of some of these evolving, you know, risks that are going to be coming our way?
How much time do we have for that? I just want to take out focus on one topic, and I think that's an industry-wide topic, and I think it's connected to what we were just discussing on the question before. It's attracting the right talent in the future, because this is something which is so important, that we have good talent in the future and that we have a diverse workforce. Munich Re is doing a lot in that regard, and I think it's all up to all of us to contribute in that regard, and whether that's via the company as such or whether you do volunteer in the spare time. It's important that young people understand what it is like to work in insurance, and that it's not as boring as you might think it could be when you don't know anything about it. I had a wonderful personal experience a couple of weeks ago. My niece is 14 years old. She goes to school in Munich, and she asked me whether I could hold a presentation in front of their class on what am I doing in the insurance industry. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, I dialed in and I gave the presentation. And these girls had a ton of questions. It was amazing. They were so curious to learn more about what the insurance world is about. And that was so motivating also for me to do that more often, because they are the talents of the future that we need to get on board. And within Munich Re, we have internship opportunities. So it's really great for students to come and join us for an internship to understand what we are doing. For us, it's also very beneficial because they can support us with some of the projects we've done. We've had really great experience in that regard. And then there is many of them who will come back after they finish with their studies and then stay on with us. So I think that's a great opportunity for all of us. And we have to be aware of it as leaders and really be very active out there to make sure that the talent knows about this fantastic industry.
Thank you. Carol?
Yeah, I would echo the shout out to insurance, right? So it's a competitive landscape, as we all know. There's more and more competition that drives innovation, which can make the insurance industry challenging, but also fun. You know, definitely our ability to acquire talent. We have a very long tenured, fantastically talented workforce. So bringing in new people and, you know, indoctrinating them into our culture, and also getting them the deep claims experience they need to be successful over time, right? So we can do a lot with technology and automation. And I've been reading in the chats, I agree with everything people are saying, right? Insurance is about people, experience, and knowledge. So, you know, reproducing that. That being said, because I am on the tech side, the challenges of, insurtech, right? And trying to figure out, how best to, we talked about it in the morning session, right? The value of some of these companies and the way they're thinking about solving customer problems and fostering more partnerships with innovative companies so that we can sort of reimagine ourselves, and trying to figure out, what's the right partnerships for you as a culture, right? So that you don't necessarily try to make your company somebody else's company, but how can technology enhance your internal operations to make you successful, and not always assuming that you have to do it the way everybody else does it. So that's a big challenge for me when we think about how to leverage technology to empower the business.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to go to our last question, and I'm going to go around the horn with everyone. Carol, I'll start with you again. So what excites you the most about the future of claims, and what should, be the final takeaway for all the new CPCUs and the younger generation coming in?
So what excites me most about claims at NJM is we're in the process of a re-engineering program, right? So we have a fantastic claim operation, and I have to shout out real quick and brag for a second, because our claims organization just received for the third time in a row the J.D. Power certification for outstanding claims experience. So we already do it really well, but we also are taking an opportunity to reimagine it, right? So we've been in our legacy. We went from legacy to our new system about 10 years ago for claims. So we're taking a fresh look at how we're doing things. And when you're already really good at it, it can be challenging to sort of disrupt yourself and say, how can we do better? How can we, bring that customer experience in and hone into that? But again, it goes back to what I would say, the last thing I would say, other than congratulations to the new CPCUs, is, that's pretty exciting, right? When you can continually look for opportunities to innovate and around the customer experience or better claim outcomes or, data analytics. And this is what all of insurance companies are doing right now. So it really does make it challenging and fun. So keep going.
Thank you. Megan, what excites you the most?
I think the opportunity to participate in building the future of this, this function in the industry. And we definitely are interested in developing the talent. We do need, diverse and talented people to come into the organization and more broadly the industry. And, I ask people this question, a lot of my managers, I say, well, okay, what are you going to be doing in 5 years? Are we building and making room for the future of this organization? So from my perspective, being able to participate, the opportunity to be with people who are building that kind of organization is something that I find tremendously motivating.
Thank you. Thank you. And lastly, Christine?
Not surprisingly, I'm going in the same direction as Carol and Megan, that times of transition and transformation. I think it's really exciting to be part of that and to shape our future and the way how we work going forward. And at the same time, from a leadership perspective, also guiding teams through these times of change and transition, I find very rewarding, because there are also concerns out there. Not everybody is open to change in the same way, and helping those people and colleagues to overcome their concerns and the hesitation and bringing them on board. I find that very rewarding, kind of motivating them, and then say, okay, now we can be really proud of what we've achieved as a team, because we can only advance together. I think that makes my insurance heart beat a little faster. And I think what's the takeaway and from the conversation, and what can I say in that regard? I think it's a really great industry that we are working in, and there is so many opportunities how each of you can bring value to the company. And I think that the most difficult part is to find out where your skills and what you bring to the table can be utilized best. So build out a great network. I think the chapter gives you a great platform for doing that, because the more people you know, the better you can find out where you want to end up in the industry, because it's really a great place to be in.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for joining us, Carol, Christine, Megan. It was wonderful of you to join us and celebrate the new designees, to donate your time to our organization and to bettering the industry around us. If you don't mind, if we maybe take a couple live questions, we got a couple minutes. So if anyone wants to just jump in, I haven't been monitoring the chat. It's been going a little too fast for me, but if anyone wants to put their video on and their mic and just ask a question, the floor is yours.
Hi, y'all. This is Carrie. I work at NJM as well as Carol does. This question was specifically to Carol because I work for the Personalized Business Process Unit. So I'm one of those talented people you spoke of earlier. I support I support a lot of personalized projects. And with regard to the integrations and the reliance on third-party data, what's the level of concern from the executive leadership team as far as relying on that data and those third parties in the event there's outages that happen and subsequently we can't do business?
No, I think it's a great question. And I did see your name. That's why I gave you that shout out. The intent of, so here's the reality, right? Ideally, we could be totally insular and, service our policyholders without being dependent on others, but that's just not reality, right? So we benefit to stay competitive from bringing in third-party data, and we do it as you know, more and more and more when we for our expansion initiatives, we're more dependent on it. So it really then comes to other processes in our organization around vendor management and making sure that our contracts and our service levels with our third parties are clear, and that we have failover and redundancy in our infrastructure to ensure that we can continue to service the business when we do have outages, because we will have outages, and you may know that we had some service outages last night. So there's always going to be power failures. There's always going to be challenges from a technology perspective. And as we become more and more dependent on technology, the risks of that really do increase. But it is it's the cost of doing business. So it just requires a lot of effort and planning and, business continuity management, really. But it was a great question. And it's nice to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you too.
A quick question. We're always told to be careful what we put in email and to be aware of things. Are there issues when you're working remotely, especially in a claims environment, of having people speak freely, knowing that anything they say or do is recordable and discoverable in one form or another?
I mean,
I can take that.
Yeah, thank you, Megan.
Hi, Craig.
Hello, Megan.
How are you?
Very good.
Yes, that is a concern. And that's why you have to be mindful. One of the first things you learn when you join a claim department is email is forever, that you are a business representative, that when we get sued, which does happen, the claim adjuster is typically the first line of defense when we have to defend ourselves. Claim adjusters are frequently produced at depositions. Their emails are all produced in the course of discovery. And it's something that you have to continuously remind people, because with every passing day, as technology becomes so pervasive, people really don't fully understand the fact that something written down in a corporate system, whether it be claim notes, whether it's email, whether it's texting, that's all corporate communication, which can be the subject of production in a litigation in the future. So you have to educate people, and you have to repeat and reinforce. And then some people who eventually will get produced at depositions and go through the experience, they're usually the best students of the corporate communication policy, because at that point you realize what it feels like to have to explain all your email communication or any other documentation on the claim. It typically doesn't feel good. That's why I'm saying it.
But not just email now, aren't these like video calls and stuff like that? Are they also going to be subject to, you know, how are Zoom meetings maintained and kept?
Well, it depends on what your corporate platform is. So if the formal corporate platform is Zoom, that would be an issue. I mean, most large corporations don't use Zoom for their formal proprietary platform for video conferencing. But yes, that's an issue. Mm-hmm. You just have to be mindful that when you're doing business, whether it's video, whether it's phone, chat, text, that what you say will not just disappear because you hang the phone up or we get off the phone or get off the WebEx.
Right. We just
I seem to have
spoke about
sobered
that.
everybody. Nobody wants to talk now.
we were just speaking about that before the session started, that, you know, all the Zoom
Yeah.
chat save, all the video saves, and it's
Yeah.
forever. There's
Yeah.
there's a footprint. Even when you delete it, there's a footprint. Someone can find the deleted files and recover them and scrub them back out. So we have to be extra diligent, extra careful, and you know, that's just be aware.
Yeah, you have to be aware.
I have a quick question. This is John Taccarino from Munich Re. Just for anybody on the panel, I'm curious for, you know, your advice on the next generation of, you know, aspiring leaders in the insurance industry. How would you compare or contrast the importance of having a broad background versus being highly specialized in what you do?
I'm happy to take that one. Hi, John. Nice to see you. I think it really depends. It depends on the role on the one hand side, and in my view, our understanding of which qualifications a leader should have these days is also changing. Because if you look back a while ago, we had an understanding that the leader has to have the deepest knowledge of the area that he's responsible for. But that has changed a lot over time, and leadership skills have taken over to a certain extent. So if you have a good team of colleagues that are very experienced in an area and they are the subject matter experts, you don't have to top that as a leader. If you bring leadership skills to the table, negotiation, conflict solving skills, bringing people together, making sure we come to an outcome and driving the topic further and giving the team the ability to drive the topic, I think that's very, very valuable these days.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have time for one last question.
Patrick, I saw a question in the chat from Hillary. As a mid-career new CPCU designee who's seeking leadership opportunities, I fear that companies are focusing on 20-somethings, but not the mid-career talent. How does someone like me get noticed by my company?
So, Hillary, I would say you're in a great place in your career, right? Because, you know, you're mature, you're sophisticated, you know about the business, you've been engaged in it. I think you're right. Many companies they publicize a lot of their attention with regard to the early career programs that are there. But I think what you have to do is be curator of your own opportunity, right? So you have to be aggressive about looking at what opportunities are either posted internally or externally. Like, look around, learn the marketplace. And I think one of the things that's hard to do, and this is something that is, you know, the older you get, it's even harder to do, is to always remember that opportunity isn't going to necessarily come to you. You have to make an effort to see what you want and also be knowledgeable about the marketplace. One of the things that's great about an organization like this is that look at all the people you have to talk to find out what's going on in the business. Try different things. That's the other thing. You know, the question that was asked before by John about, you know, are you better to be specialized or generalized if you want to be a leader? Sometimes we focus on just, you know, achieving a management title, thinking that makes us a leader. You know, I maintain you can be a leader as a single contributor, and you can be a leader whether you're managing a group of people or not. A leader is somebody who basically is accountable is an excellent role model and somebody who helps the organization. And there are different ways people lead. So I would say throw your hat in the ring, reach out, talk to people, and really understand yourself and what you think you're going to want in the future. But I do think, know that, once you get more and more mature in your career, it is really something that you have to direct and focus. There isn't really an HR or typically a holistic talent management program in any corporation that just provides you logical steps. A lot of it is risk-taking, opportunity, trying new things.
And seek out a mentor too. That's been very valuable for me throughout my career. Seek out people in the organization who might be able to help you, navigate the particular culture you're in.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with what Carol and Megan have said in that context. And sometimes there are small opportunities where you can get visibility within the organization if you participate in a project or you lead a project, so you gain additional experience in that context too. And sometimes you have to push yourself a little bit out of the comfort zone in order to do that. But I think with the network, with a mentor in place that opens it up and being proactive, then it should work.
All right. So with that, I think that's a great point. That's a great final comment. We are going to call it a wraps for the keynote session. Again, thank you to Carol, Christine, and Megan for joining us and giving your time to meet with us, to celebrate with the new designees, and to share some key insights.
That's good.
Thank you. It was
So,
awesome.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations.
So once again, on behalf of the Central Jersey and the New Jersey chapters, new designees, thank you. The journey is just beginning. Keep reaching out, keep connecting with us informally, formally through our socials. We're here to help. We're here to support your journey. And for all of the mid-careers and late career people, the same holds true. So this is a fantastic industry. It's one I'm very proud of, that I've dedicated almost my entire working career to. And I can't wait to see what the future holds for all of us.